Okay, this is 10 things that All Eyes on Me, the movie, got wrong. And with the movie's release, there's been people that either love it, they hate it, or it's in between, but it can't be denied that there are a lot of inaccuracies in the movie. And in this list, I'm going to go through just 10 of them. I could probably go to 15 or 20. They may be a little bit nitpicky to some, but otherwise, these are 10 things that the movie got wrong. Number 10, and this is kind of a pivotal one because the chain of events that it sparked was so significant and played such a high role in the movie, or actually in real life, that they should have put more emphasis on it in the movie. But when Trayvon busts in the office and says, the dudes at the mall jumped me and took my chain, I understand they put it there so they could set up the Orlando fight, which actually happened, but the basis of that scene is inaccurate because what had happened was he got jumped at the mall and they tried to take his chain. He didn't get his chain snatched. So just even though it's a little nitpicky, it's a small little minor thing, but nevertheless it just shows that they didn't really fully do all their homework, which you'll see in the rest of this list that's pretty apparent. Number 9, when Suge bumps into Tupac as Tupac is leaving the Interscope office, he tells Tupac, "I'm doing the Above the Rim soundtrack. I know you got a song for me." And Tupac says yes, and then in a later scene, Suge gives him a ton of money, and Pac goes for one song. The problem with that is, number one, it wasn't for the Above the Rim soundtrack, it was for the Murder with K soundtrack. And number two, it was two songs that Tupac turned in. He turned in Life So Hard, and he turned in High Till I Die. So again, it's a small thing. It may be me being nitpicky, but nevertheless, it just shows the lack of research and the lack of effort that really went into making this project. Number 8. One thing I didn't really like about the movie is how they really tried to portray Suge as this super bully. Granted, he had the rep, he had the rumor, and he probably more than likely was that bully. However, he was not like that with Tupac. From everybody that I've talked to over the years, from even back when I worked at Death Row in 1997, they all would tell me that when it came to Tupac and Snoop, Suge was more or less a groupie of theirs. He was never trying to do intimidating shit. He was never telling them, the scene in the movie where Pac gets mad at Snoop for talking about the bad boy thing, and Suge says, "Who you think you're talking to?" Blah blah blah. Like all that stuff that never happened because more or less from everything I heard, Suge was just a straight Pac groupie, and whatever Pac wanted to do, Pac did, and that's why people got so mad at the label. And when I say the other people got mad, I mean people like Danny Boy, people like Nate Dogg, people like Snoop, who all had projects lined up ready to go. And then when Pac came, Suge's focus went squarely on Pac and allowed him to do whatever he wanted to do, and that pushed all the other projects that were set up to the back burner. Number 7. This is a very minor one, but it's still, something that sparked in my head. In the scene where they walk in the club, where Tupac meets Faith, this was early, very early after he got released from jail when he actually met Faith in real life. Now in the movie, they're playing the DJ at the club's playing the song "All Eyes on Me," when in actuality the album had not come out yet. They were obviously still recording, and Suge was not letting anyone hear any of that album. When he allowed magazines to review the album, he sent George Price on a plane to New York and had a tape recorder, or had like a little like a tape deck in a briefcase with a copy of All Eyes on Me cassette in there, and had it handcuffed to George Price's wrist so that no one could take the tape, no one could record it. It wouldn't leave their tape deck and go into somebody else's to where they could dub it. So that's how careful they were with All Eyes on Me. So the fact that it's playing in the club before the album is even finished, is another thing that just rubbed me a little bit wrong. Number 6, and this one's pretty obvious, the Jada Pinkett scenes. She spoke out about it on Twitter, said they never happened. The poem that he reads to her in the movie is a real poem. However, she came out and said that it was never read to her. She didn't even know it existed until Pac died and it was published in the book. and then there was never a backstage altercation at a show between Tupac and her. She spoke on that. Everybody's probably aware of that, but still, I wanted to put it on the list. Number 5, another small one, Frank Alexander, Pac's bodyguard in real life and in the movie. In the movie, he's wearing a death row chain. In real life, we all know Frank never wore a death row chain. He was never given a death row chain, and truthfully, he probably never wanted a death row chain. Number 4, back onto the death row chain thing. As you know, if you're a pretty big Pac fan, you know the first version of the How Do You Want It music video, he's not wearing a death row chain. In the Tabitha Thorne interview, which you can watch on our channel, he's not wearing the death row chain. He did not get that death row chain until, I would say, about a month and a half to 2 months after he got released from jail. However, in the movie, the second he gets off the plane to California, they hand him a death row chain. Again, it's minor, but if you're a fan, you know, just from looking back at the video, looking back at photos, looking back at interviews, that it just didn't happen that way. Number 3, Euthanasia. They play this as Euthanasia is going to be Tupac's project as he exits death row. While Euthanasia was a company that he was going to create, it was going to be a production company, which they do acknowledge in the movie. However, you're led to believe in the movie that Euthanasia is going to be a production company as well as a record company, and that's what Tupac is going to do as he leaves death row. But in actuality, and you can listen back to interviews with Tupac where he talks about where he sees himself in 5 years, and he says he sees himself owning stock at death row, doing A&R at death row, dropping an album every couple of years, and that other projects he's working on is, in his words, he said, I have a production company I'm working on, I have a restaurant with Alanis and Suge that he's working on. So Euthanasia was real. It was going to be a production company for TV and film. It was going to be through Def Jam Pictures, but it wasn't going to be where he was going to record records. He was going to do Machiavelli Records, which was going to be through Death Row Records, and there's proof of this in his songs that everybody's heard, but some people choose to tune out. So if you listen to the very intro of Just Like Daddy, he says Death Row Machiavelli Records. If you listen to the outro of the original As the World Turns, he talks about Death Row gave birth to a new seed, Machiavelli Records. So I don't care what people say. They're always going to say one thing or the other, but the fact is he was going to do Machiavelli Records through Death Row. Euthanasia was going to be his venture into film, TV, directing, and all that stuff. Number 2, the House of Blues concert. This, as everybody knows, took place July 4th, 1996. However, in the movie, he performs Hail Mary, which is odd because he didn't record Hail Mary until July 7th, 1996 during the Machiavelli recording sessions. So the fact that they even did that makes me question. I'm sure they knew, because everybody's got the concert, that he didn't perform Hail Mary. It makes me believe that it was put in there for other reasons, probably publishing, maybe on the Outlaw side, maybe somewhere else. I'm not really sure, but it literally makes no sense for him to perform that song when anybody who is a real fan, who was a fan of Pac's at the time, who followed his career, who waited for the Machiavelli album to come out, who knew what was on it and all that stuff. It's just laziness, and I really don't understand why that had to happen. It just didn't make any sense. Number 1, the Death Row East scene. This one to me was, when I saw this in the movie, this is when I was like, okay, this movie is kind of messed up. Granted, don't get me wrong, to the people that like it, I think it's great that you like it. Don't let anybody else sway your opinion. If you like it, then you like it. There's nothing wrong with that. For me personally, knowing a lot of the people at the label, working at the label for so many years, I had asked and talked about and discussed all this stuff with them because I was a big Tupac fan before I worked for Death Row. that's what, made me want to work for Death Row, was being a fan of Tupac's. So basically in the movie, they make it out to where after Tupac tells Suge that he's going to leave, Suge calls him in and says, I really thought about what you said, and let me come talk to you for a second. And he takes him into the room where, earlier in the movie, they show a guy getting beat up in that room, which is one of the beatdown rooms at the Can-Am studio. Um, However, when he's walking Tupac back, they have like the ominous music, and they show Pac all nervous, which goes back to the intimidation thing, which would have never happened. But when he walks in the room, it's a bunch of people holding Death Row East signs, and Suge says, Death Row East is going to be yours. It'll give you distribution for Euthanasia, and you get the East Coast, and I'll run the West Coast out here, and we're partners now. Number one, Death Row East was actually going to happen. I know Papa G said that it wasn't going to happen. From everybody that I talked to, it was in the works. Eric B from Eric B and Rakim was going to run Death Row East. They already had artists lined up that they were going to try to get. Eric B had a kid with Virginia Slim, who people know from the Row era, but she worked at at Can-Am as a receptionist back in the 96 time. He was going to run Death Row East. It was not going to have anything to do with Tupac, other than Tupac was, at this point, basically, in his mind, and probably what he was led to believe, he was what Dre originally was, as far as he felt like he took Dre's spot, meaning he wanted to be a stock owner in Death Row, which he said in interviews. He pictured himself staying affiliated with Death Row for years and years and years, which he mentioned in interviews. So the fact that they even went this whole Death Row East thing makes absolutely no sense, because anybody that was there, anybody that was following it, knows that wasn't the case. You almost think that they saw that one little interview clip where, they reenacted in the movie where Tupac's talking about Believe in Death Row East, and then they just took that one little minute and a half interview and said, oh, Suge probably gave him Death Row East, and that's why they were going to do that. But in actuality, it's not the truth, and I don't really know why that was in the movie, and it kind of makes no sense, and really, for me, it delegitimized the movie to me, because to put something in there that was that false, on top of all this other little stuff, kind of made me just be like, you know what? It's cool that Pac has a movie. He deserves it. It was a long time coming. You can tell that they put, production work into it, but the screenplay and the script, it was just so sloppy, and there were so many just inaccurate things in there, and just a lot of mistakes that I just, for me, I'm curious to see if the estate does their own version with John Singleton or whoever. Obviously, a lot of the gang stuff wouldn't be in there. So the fact that they acknowledged that was good. It showed that it didn't really show Tupac partake in any of it. And I know everybody in the comments is going to be like, but he wasn't a blood, and he didn't do this, and he didn't do that. I think in 2017, everybody knows now that MOB didn't just stand for some code of money over bitches that he said in songs. When you get that tattoo on the back of your arm, and you're claiming MOB and all this kind of stuff, there's enough information out now that people know what it really means. Back then, Snoop wasn't on albums claiming Crip. It had to be hidden. You didn't boast that shit back then. And so the money over bitches thing and all that was just a good way to cover up kind of what it meant big picture wise. You can agree with me. You can not agree with me. You can say I'm full of shit. You can do whatever. But as long as you speak in those comments, I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter to me. It's an open forum. I want everybody to converse, to talk about. If you like the movie, tell me why you like the movie. Tell me what you liked about it. Tell me some of your favorite scenes. If you agree with me and some of this stuff you agree with, tell me that too. Also tell me, if you didn't like it, why you didn't like it. But that's it for now. There'll be another 10 things coming soon. So I appreciate the subscribers. I appreciate the comments. Stay tuned. Thanks.